Hi there, I'm JP Dice, and welcome into the hangar. I am super excited to be talking to flight instructor and longtime friend Johnny Barnes, who's going to be, I guess you're going to be hanging up your flight instructor wings shortly, and you've been doing this for a long time. I was reading your bio, and what is it, over 3,000 hours of dual instruction that you've given?
That's correct. About 3,800 hours.
And I read something, and I think you told me too, that you got into flight instruction with the help of maybe the encouragement of your wife.
I was told to get into it.
She wanted to get you out of the house.
Right. I'd worked for an insurance company. I'd always flown for a long time.
Yeah.
I had a private and I had an instrument, but I never even had a commercial. I didn't have any desire to do any of that. And so, yeah, after I retired, well, they bought our company out and I was without a job. They paid us off, and she said, "Why don't you go get your instructor's rating?" I said, "Go get your instructor's training."
Yeah.
So I went down to American Flyers and spent about 5 weeks and went through their academy.
That's pretty intense training.
Yeah.
I know a lot of folks that have done that. And you started instructing. You've
Right.
been flying a long time now. I mean, you were flying when you were a kid almost, a teenager.
Right.
What got you into aviation? Why did you want to fly airplanes?
Don't know.
Kid in Tennessee, right?
That's it. I didn't know a soul that flew. As long, literally, as I can remember, JP, as a little kid, I was fascinated by airplanes.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
And I tell people it's Sky because of the old TV show Sky King. I love that show, but I don't know that that was the real reason. I can't remember and even in high school and junior high, everybody's reading Hot Rod and Carcraft and Motor Trend.
Yeah.
I'm reading Flying.
Yeah, same here. That's
In
what I.
11th grade, I remember ordering trade a plane 3 times
Yeah.
a month for $6 for 6 months. Or you would get, and I would read trade a plane.
I can identify with that. I remember my birthday when I turned 8 years old. I had a friend actually brought me a trade-a-plane.
Yeah.
And I would just sit there and daydream about all these planes. I'd love to buy this one and this one. And so kind of the same background. I'd run to the bookstore, and we went to the bookstore, old Walden bookstores in the mall.
All right.
I always had my parents buy me airplane books.
Right.
So kind of the same thing. Loved airplanes. Did a different career path, at least initially, just like you. Let's talk about instructing.
Yep.
So you get all kinds of students.
Exactly.
You've had, I mean, they're all kinds of backgrounds,
Exactly.
all kinds of gender, some military backgrounds, some civilian, some people that are aspiring to do something else. Any big stories that stand out over the years that you're like, well, you know, that kind of stands out?
One that quickly comes to mind,
Yeah.
I've mentioned this a little bit earlier. I have a real good friend of mine that has turned into a good friend at Shelby County named Reggie Hyde.
Yeah.
Reggie was a F-16 pilot and also flies for American Airlines,
Sure.
and now is a captain and been with it 19 years. Flew 777s and now he's on Airbuses.
Die-hard professional pilot. Many of us know Reggie.
Right, yeah, super guy, very, very intelligent. He called out the airport about 3 years ago. I didn't talk to him and wanted to get checked out in a small plane. He hadn't flown one since flight school in the Air Force. So they signed into me in 172. Never met the guy. And he comes out to the airport and immediately liked him. So we go up flying the 172 and he's really struggling. I mean, he's landing, 50 feet in the air because he's used to landing so high and he can't slow it down, with all that stuff. So he's struggling. Reggie will tell you this. And so I said, well, why are you wanting to learn to fly small airplanes? He said, I'm getting ready to buy a Mooney. I said, you're kidding. He said, never flown one, but that's what I want. So I said, land the airplane. And he landed the airplane. He thought I was mad at him. I said, you're about to fly a Mooney because that's what I had. And we went up and flew the Mooney, and he got it down pretty good. He struggled for a little bit, but he got it down. He's a great pilot now. But I always think of Reggie when we think of that yeah, he did that. So
And that's the thing about airplanes. Airplane's an airplane, but they are so vastly different. early on I thought, hey, somebody comes out of the military or they're a long-time airline pilot, and you
Exactly.
put them in one of these single or a twin-engine plane, and they're going to be just like this. It's going to be just incredible. There's a transition that goes on. You're dealing with different speeds, different power, different sight picture when you're coming in. So there's a lot of variables.
I'm totally lost in what they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I can tell you now, after flying some jets for a while, you get really good at knowing what buttons to push, because there's a lot of that going on, dealing with the automation. So in terms of teaching folks,
Right.
you've had a lot of people, and I know this, that you've taken and they have become professional pilots, whether it be corporate aviation or gone to the airlines or maybe even chosen the military route. So you have to consider, you've been a bit of an inspiration over the years with a lot of these folks, getting them set to the, folks have told me, if you go to Shelby County Airport, you need to meet Johnny Barnes. Even before I met Johnny Barnes, they said, you need to talk to Johnny Barnes. So how does that make you feel? You know, these folks are, you know, you got people that you have taught that are left seat in these big airline planes with successful careers, doing very, very well.
That's the reason I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the time I got into it, that was my ambition. Like yours, I want to be an airline pilot. That's all I wanted to be my kid. Well, that killed me. You know, putting glasses on back then, they wouldn't take you.
They killed me with the military.
Yeah,
I wanted to be an Air Force pilot.
I was going to do it. Yep.
They didn't want didn't want kids with glasses back then.
Now, especially young people, if I can help, I live my dream through them. Does that make sense?
Vicariously.
And so I sure do. And I keep in touch with a lot of them. You probably know of Casey Henderson that flies for Hawaiian Air, and I talk to him probably at least once a week, and he feels me. Get ready to fly C-17s, by the way.
With the Air Guard.
With the Air Guard out there. So then David McElwain's just going with JetBlue. He's been flying with the regionals. We got Kevin Aldred. That's just some of the others that
That's right.
That they I like hearing them, hearing what they're doing, and
A lot of us
I feel good.
Became flight instructors too.
Yeah, flew with you.
Yeah.
And
let me tell you about Johnny. What I liked about Johnny as a flight instructor, just the demeanor. You immediately felt at ease. And I think a lot of us learn better in that environment. Johnny was not over there hitting you with a newspaper on the top of the head. He would let you take it, you know, far enough to mess up a little bit, and you'll be like, well, you're probably not going to do that again, are you?
Well,
I remember the first time I flew your Mooney. I had never touched a Mooney before. All I knew was they are fairly, you know, fast piston engine airplanes, and you kind of taught me the way. And I must say that Johnny is probably, even though he's not a Mooney salesperson, he has sold a lot of Moonies over the years. There's one right behind us that I ended up buying because I love the airplane so much. So Johnny, aside from flight instructing, there's a lot of other things that you've done over the years. I remember when we had the BP oil spill, and there was a lot of folks that were not traveling to the Alabama Gulf Coast, and you got some pilots and got a lot of folks enthusiastic about flying back down there and kind of injecting back into that local economy. I remember you asked me, it's like, hey, and we would work together sometimes and promote it on television.
Right. We had 30 airplanes, if I remember right, to go down. I forgot how many people that went down for that. We all had T-shirts, support the Gulf Coast, and those were donated, but then we had people's names on the back that donated. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it is right now. So we took all the people down there. CNN met us, mainly because, I guess, because they were down there shooting about the Gulf spill, so they were there. Some people from New Orleans were there. Wound up, Fox did something on it. It was picked up by the Fox affiliates they did it through the whole state of Alabama. And somebody said it picked in the newspaper, at LA newspaper. I didn't see that. So it made several newspapers. But not about me, but it was I don't even think my name was mentioned it, which is fine, but I'm saying it got the Gulf Coast a lot of attention. And we had people at the shops, those that went would come out and shake you in because they knew we were coming. We'd made sure the newspapers down there knew we were coming. A bunch of the Parrot Heads, Jimmy Buffett's people, met us at the airport. And
was this at Jack Edwards?
Jack Edwards, they sure did.
Yeah.
So we all had a real good time. It's probably one of the most fun things we did. And I think it got them some publicity. And I know I got a couple of text messages or emails from people down there that really appreciated it. So we did that.
And Johnny would also quite often help organize trips out to Arkansas to Gaston's.
Gaston, yeah, White River Resort.
You always try to get me to go, and for whatever reason,
you got to make that trip.
I worked in TV, which had a crazy schedule, so I could really never make that work. But I always heard it was fantastic.
That is a beautiful place. Everybody that has ever gone wants to go again.
Yeah.
So maybe I have a little more time. Maybe I work on another
fish
trip.
Good?
Fish is good. People that want to fish
Yeah.
there. They got a great restaurant there, right at the neat. It's an older place, but everything's spotless there. The rooms are spotless. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place. So we had a blast.
I'm always looking somewhere to take this red airplane behind me.
It's one way in, one way out airstrip. You need to look at some stuff on YouTube about how to get in there. It's not dangerous. Just do it right.
Yeah. Much like aviation, it's not dangerous as long as you do it right.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, you don't want to push it. But yeah, it's a great place. Mike Davidson's from up in that area, so he was very familiar with it too.
What's nice though is extending out beyond instructing and organizing a lot of these events, which bring aviators together and bring their families involved in going to some of these trips.
And a lot of people took people that were not involved in aviation along with their passengers.
Sure.
So yeah, I would introduce him to it. I took a principal from school. Yeah.
Of course, being in aviation for so many years, there's a collection of stories that we all have. I'm still building my list right now. You've got a pretty long list. And I'm hearing one that concerns a balloon. Mm-hmm. All right, what's going on here? Give me the backstory on this infamous balloon escapade.
One of my best friends in the world in Memphis, Tennessee, where I learned to fly, where I grew up, was a guy named Joe Williams. Joe Williams was one of the most influential guys I knew as far as my aviation deal. He always encouraged me. He's a little older than I was. And Joe had a Bonanza. When I first knew him, he had a Cessna 175, and then he'd fly helicopters. He had seaplane rating. He got into ballooning.
Okay. Like hot air balloons?
Hot air balloons. Now, Joe could build and make anything. Everything he had was just perfect. We were living in Knoxville now, so I was not here to make this trip with him. I went on some of his trips with him. He had a house on the lake at Greer's Ferry in Heber Springs, Arkansas. Beautiful lake over there, right on the airport. He could taxi off and go to his airplane. Everybody over there knew Joe. They called Joe and said, Joe, we're having Oktoberfest over here at Heber Springs. You reckon you could get some of your ballooning friends to come over and bring their balloons? Well, those guys love that kind of stuff. Sure. And there was a bunch of them in Memphis and West Tennessee and North Mississippi. There's a whole group of them. So they all go over to this balloon deal for the Oktoberfest. Joe and them are there, and they take off. In the meantime, there was a lady that worked, or a girl, a fairly young girl, that worked for the local newspaper that had requested to come along and ride with one of the pilots and take pictures for the newspaper, okay? So they put her in the plane, and I wish I knew the guy's name because your friend may know him, with a guy, the FedEx guy.
Okay.
And he had a buddy with him. I don't know if his buddy flew FedEx or not. And she gets in the balloon with them. And now Joe has already taken off. A lot of the balloons are already taken off, and they're floating on out here. Now up comes the photographer in the other balloon. One of the things they like to do with them balloons is come down and just skim the water, right? And skim the lake. So they came on, they come down, and they hit that water. When they hit that water, she freaks. Boom! Right in the middle of Greer's Ferry Lake, she bails, camera and all, out of the balloon. Well, they sit back down, and she's floundering around trying to get. And they get over to her, and they start leaning over to pull her back in. Say, it's okay. They're leaning over. She's grabbing the basket. And now guess what? It starts tilting over, and it starts getting water in it. Uh-oh. Meanwhile, boats they see what's going on. They're flying in there to help them out. Well, it ain't no way it's getting so much water. It starts going down. They bail out of it before it sinks. Now it's light. It takes off.
The balloon.
The balloon takes off with nobody in it. There is a resort not too awful far from Greer's Ferry. I think it's still there. Very nice resort. It's called Red Apple Inn.
Yeah.
It had a grass strip there. I don't know where it's still there. And it had a grass strip that very few people use, but people That dead-gum balloon landed on that grass strip.
It found an airport.
It landed on that grass strip. Joe and them have already landed in their balloon. They've done loaded their vehicle up to Chase Cruise there, and they're driving back. They're heading back to Heber Springs, and they look over and, oh, there's old Joe. Whatever. Let's go over and help him. His ground crew's not there. Let's go over there and help him package up his balloon. So they pull over there and they, Joe.
He's not there.
He ain't there. Some old guy, they said, leaning up against a tree just watching them. And finally, Joe, my buddy, says, hey, fella, did you see the crew that came in? He said, "'Twarn't none." What he said, no, I'm saying, were you here in the plane landing? Yeah. Well, where'd they go? Where? He said, there 'twarn't none. So, anyway, sure enough, there 'twarn't none. So anyway,
it's the phantom balloon.
That was it. So I used to call Joe, wasn't that tall. You didn't mess with him. But he'd laugh, and he'd get to laugh, tears roll down his eyes. And he'd tell that story and he'd start laughing. Several people told it. I know it's true. I know another guy, my ex-brother-in-law, matter of fact, was with them when it happened. But I would call Joe every once in a while. As soon as he'd pick up the phone, I'd say, "'Twarn't none." He couldn't even talk. He'd start laughing again so hard. But that's the balloon. Is that what you want?
That's a good one.
'Twarn't none. Sounds like Arkansas, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let's talk about after the big severe weather event, April 27th, 2011. You organized a toy drive for some of these communities that were hard hit, devastated, in some cases even wiped out by those tornadoes.
Well, yeah, we had some stuff at our airport for people to donate toys. I also called down to the coast and got word out down at Jack Edwards. We came down and helped y'all during the oil spill. We got some people up here in need. Could you reciprocate and maybe have some toys brought? So they had 2 or 3 locations. One was the airport, and I can't remember one of the others where the water slides and all that stuff are. So people brought toys and stuff there for them. They paid back to help. So then they came back up. We brought them all up to Birmingham. Then we split up, and we had a bunch of our local pilots start flying up to Hecklenburg. Some of them went up to Fort Payne area, all around, and delivering these toys up there. And so that worked out pretty good. What was it, Rachel? She didn't call me up. She went to Charleston or Charlotte.
Yeah, it was
Lindenberg, not Lindenberg.
No, and she did a segment called Rachel on the Road, I believe, and she was over at CBS 42.
Yeah,
and so you're doing an introductory flight lesson.
Yeah.
And they put this on TV.
They had a cameraman in the back, and we went up.
I watched it. It was pretty cool.
We just did, just your typical stuff you're going to do.
Like
straight, level. That's it. Yeah, just let them make some turns, and we talked about it and all that kind of stuff. And
And this is where you have to watch when you're doing something for television. Things are being recorded, and what you say, and you never know what may.
Well, I was conscious of that the whole time I'm talking to her. Watch what you say.
Yeah.
So we land. We get back, and we're unbuckling. Even took our headsets off. I forget about the guy. I thought it was over with anyway. I wasn't paying attention. And she said, that was fun. I really enjoyed that. How did I do? And I said, well, you did pretty good for a girl. Well, she thought it was funny. I never thought any more about it. The next morning, they play all this stuff, and they had Ken Clay in there making some talks and stuff. And we fly, and we land, and that's the last thing. And I said, well, you did pretty good for a girl. And Art Franklin cracks up. He's one there watching it. My phone blew up. I can't believe you did that. My wife's when you said that. I had no idea that camera was still rolling. I'd have never.
They probably that's the best thing you said. That was the best part there.
It depends. You wasn't on the other end of the telephone.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that many people watched 42. Now 6 I could understand, but 42. Didn't know that many people watched.
Yeah, television's still a very powerful medium. You have to remember that.
Yeah. So anyway,
that was a good story.
All right.
No lasting repercussions.
No, she took it real well. She even got to call me and hey, I've changed.
I must note, he's had and still has many very, very, in fact, exceptional female students.
I got a compliment that meant a whole lot to me, and I don't like to talk about myself much, but just recently, I got a text message from a young man that when I started flying with him, he was going to be a senior at Auburn.
Yeah.
He was, and I don't know correct what he was, but I think he was the top student in ROTC program. Was that commandant? I think he was the commandant there. And he was wanting to fly for the Air Force. And he got so many hours, 5 I think was all they were requiring, it may have been 10, he got so many more points on whatever type test they took. So through a connection, my wife used to work with his stepfather, and they called me and said, would you give him 5 lessons or 10 lessons? Yeah. Well, boy, I flew in for a very short time, and I said, this kid is good. He is super sharp. And I begged him to go get his medical and get his, and we solo him. And he said, well, I don't have to do it. The Air Force paid for my medical. I'll just wait. And I said, no, go get Stephen Mixon was his name. He finally did go get it, and I soloed him, I think, in about 10 hours, which is pretty doggone. He's that good.
Yeah.
And then I flew with him a couple times after that. I followed him a little bit on Facebook, and he's now flying jets for the Air Force, and now he's a fighter pilot instructor.
Wow.
Out at Shepherd Air Force Base, teaching United States Air Force and 14 NATO countries to fly the, okay.
So that natural ability paid off.
He sent something to me, and this is the kind of stuff you do it for. He said, I want you to know, when I'm instructing these guys, I think about you often, about when I'm getting frustrated and upset, how calm and how much patience you had with me.
That's right.
And so, the colleague, an Air Force fighter pilot telling me that. Also, when he would mess up, kind of came a joke to us. He'd say, are you high or low, Stephen? So, well, I'm high. Well, then fix it. You know, he'd go, you know.
Yeah.
You left or right or center line. Well, I'm a little left. Well, then fix it. You know, don't just sit there and tell me that, fix it. So it got to be kind of a joke between, he said, okay, I'm left or center line, I'll fix it. And he says in this memo, and by the way, I use that term, fix it, all the time with my guy. So that's kind of stuff that means a lot to me.
And I think what we do, we hopefully take the best traits of all of our instructors over the year, and when we become instructors, we apply that. So, you know.
But you and I had a good time.
Yeah, we did have a good time. Johnny helped me through my commercial rating. And I remember when I was doing my commercial check ride, and I was getting in there with the DPE, and Johnny, every few minutes, I'd get a text message or a phone call, and he'd be like, hey, did you do this? Did you get this? Did you get this? Make sure you do this. Just a little, it's almost like there anxiety, some OCD going on, and now as an instructor, I feel exactly like that when a student's on a check ride, because I'm just worried they're going to have some little T that's not crossed or a I that's not dotted.
Everybody says, you get nervous when they solo. Nope. I know they're ready.
Yeah.
Check ride.
Me too.
I am a nervous wreck. Well, not as much as I used to, but I still get nervous when they take their check ride. Did I not show them this? Could I have done this better with them or whatever?
Yeah, that's the part. The solo, I'm good with that. It's the check ride, I'm just like pacing the floor.
Yep.
But, you know, I think that's a trait that shows, hey, we care. We want the student to succeed and get to that next level. So what's the plan now? Are you gonna continue to fly?
I'm going to continue to fly. Don't know who. I've had several people say you can use my airplane, but yeah, I'll still do some flying. They asked me the other day at Barry Franks out at Over the Mountain Aviation, said, would you consider teaching some ground schools? And we used to do a lot of that, especially prepare the students for oral exams.
Like a check ride prep.
Yep, exactly. And I said, yeah, I might do some of that. So I might do, which keep my mind going. I like doing that kind of stuff. So,
you know, it's hard to take yourself out of the airport.
Well, there's so much of my identity of where I've been for the last 15 years that I'm going to miss that.
You know, people ask me if I miss the television business, and you know, I miss a lot of the people I work with. But I think most of my identity is in a place like this. This is what I enjoy doing. It's like you. It's you get paid for it, but it's really something that you'd probably do for free.
And I did a lot of that for free.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
So
right.
Johnny Barnes, one of the greatest, and I mean that, just absolutely had a good time as an instructor, and everybody that you talk to that's had Johnny as an instructor has really spoken highly. So it's a big loss in our local aviation community, and congratulations on the next step.
Thank
Stay
you,
in
sir.
touch, man.
We'll do it. Promise.